Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
It's a way to encapsulate a moment in time that will move me in some way, hopefully. Or it's a practical thing, but most of the time I'd like to think that photographs are a memory. They create a memory for me that moves me emotionally most of the time.
That was great. Easy. Perfect. Okay, so is it Sam or Samantha?
Sam.
Okay, Sam Spiro.
Yes.
Welcome to Shooting It Raw.
Thank you.
A humble little podcast that tries to address the question of, like, we're given a limited bucket of seconds of life.
Yeah.
How do we make every second count, right?
Yeah.
Just a little ambitious. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. How did you find me?
I don't remember. I think somehow I came across your husband a year ago or something, and then he said, "Oh, well, actually,"
Yeah.
I think husband or your partner said, "My wife, my partner, is writing a book. Let's talk when the book is ready," or maybe not.
No, you sent that to me, but I think that was in COVID, but I just wondered, I reckon that was COVID. I think, but I could be wrong.
All great. Well, look, so we're finally here. I have to ask, how's your head?
My head is fine. It took me a whole week to recover from that. There you go.
That is full on. Okay, so what you see, we don't know each other. What you don't, and I think I hinted this in an email, was that I was run over by a car. I had 3 brain hemorrhages. I was in a coma, paralyzed, severe headache, not headache, severe mental trauma, or brain injury or whatever. And so when you told me that, I can't record tomorrow because I was concussed or however you put it, I was just like, oh, wait, what? So yeah. I hope you're okay.
No, I'm good. It definitely knocked me for 6, but I'm fine. I'm good. I'm radiant. Wow. I'm thriving.
Well, welcome to the podcast. Are we going to dive into your photos? Shall we dive in?
Yes, let's dive in.
Wicked. So again, I don't look at them beforehand. I don't know what you send.
Okay.
So you're taking me on a journey, right?
Okay.
And I'm going to learn about you through the images.
And you're going to ask me questions, right?
Probably.
Okay.
We're going to talk. We're just going to talk. Okay, so first it's a podcast centered on photos. So in this case, it's a photo of a selfie. A very handsome young man is holding the camera away. He's got this beautiful gristled sort of quasi beard, whatever. And then kind of nuzzled in tight, you're holding up a book, Beyond Bullshit to Bliss. What? Beyond Bullshit to Bliss.
Yes.
Okay, so it's the photo is made in it looks like a studio or a kitchen or something, a living room. It's very bright outside. You can't really see the outside. Beyond Bullshit to Bliss. I love the title. Now, where are you taking us? Sam Spiro.
So this picture was the day that Noah, who is my husband, and I received the first proof of our book. And we have called that book Beyond Bullshit to Bliss. And the subtitle is A Transformative Guide to Finding Self-Love, Abundance, and In-Lightenment, as in I-N, Lightenment, and not E-N. So I think this was end of March. I can't remember exactly. Beginning sometime maybe early April. And after working on it for months with a good team of freelancers, we finally got the freelance copy. So this is amazing, because it's the birth of our baby.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. Well, so what you don't know about me is that I have been in the world of books and publishing and writing and all that stuff. And I've had a few authors on the podcast. Authors tend to want to talk about what they've done. In the photo, you're smiling, like you're both just looking at, I guess it looks like a phone selfie, not a camera selfie.
Yep.
You're both looking at it at the camera with a kind of a neutral expression. And what's great is that the center of the image is your hand holding up this book. The cover image, so the top half of the book is black, and then the bottom half looks like this road leading into a sky, it's just blues and greens.
And the yellow.
And yellow, okay. And
here, I'm going to show.
So I know, oh, look at that. There we go. Oh, congratulations. Nice.
Yes.
So you're holding up the book.
Yes.
So I know about books, and calling it your baby. Of course, it's a baby. It takes a long time to craft. Probably harder. I mean, babies just kind of happen organically in your body, or in one's body. But a book is, by the time it's published, many authors are just like, if I never see this book again, that'll be fine. You need a little bit of time to kind of
absolutely
come back from the birth. Okay, so talk to me about your book.
Okay, so this book, well, it did take 3 years. It took 3 years from start to finish. So I could have given birth to 2 baby elephants in that time, I believe.
Wow.
And it all came about, I think what happened was after it was COVID and my husband and I were reunited. Basically, I went off to India to do a yoga teacher training course. He went off to Bali to recover from surgery. And we got locked down alone from each other for 6 months.
Oh, shit.
Indeed. But I'm not going to go into that too much right now because that's for another book. But let's just say that after 6 months of being separated, we finally find ourselves reunited. We got married. And then we found ourselves in Greece.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. And 5 days after getting to Greece, we got locked down again. So we were in Crete in Greece. We were locked down together. Everything is shut. And it was okay. I need to write the story of what happened in India. So I'm typing away. I must have written 80,000 words of one book. And I have a friend who's a literary agent who said to me, oh no, don't write your memoir first, write a self-help book because that will become, she said, write your self-help book, then write your memoir. So I'm like, do I know how to write a self-help book? Who knows? But obviously you know books. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I literally sat down for 1 month and I wrote 110,000 words in a month.
Oh, wow.
Which is 2 self-help books.
Yep. Amazing. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So how did you land on okay, so you don't sound Australian to me, but it's an Australian title in the sense of the brashness and whatever. And right now or maybe you are Australian, but because right now you're in Brisbane. And
yes.
So it's I love the energy of it and the sort of like beyond bullshit to bliss. Okay. So that what that says is everything else up until that point of that awakening is bullshit. So how do you get beyond bullshit? Like what is that about?
Okay, so I'm not sure really what you're asking, but the way we define bullshit, I'm going to jump in. Tell me if I'm wrong. The way we define bullshit, or if you pick up the Oxford Dictionary and you look up bullshit, it will define it as something that's nonsense, okay, or a lie. So basically, what we're saying is, and this book, it goes in line with our own journey, and we're talking about the bullshit of the mind. So that is, for example, all of the stories we tell ourselves, all of the narratives we tell ourselves, everything that we experience, say in our formative years between 0 to 7, 9, 14. And basically we take on board those visions, those pictures, as you like, and we then make them mean things, right or wrong. And then based on that, a whole life story is created on how we saw those pictures, defined those pictures, felt about those pictures. And then basically everything that happens in life is then ticked off against those pictures and the meaning that we gave to those pictures as we were growing up. So I retrained in cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy, psychology and psychotherapy, etc., etc. So based on that understanding and based on what I went through and based on what happened to me when I got to India And previously, I'd been to India a few years before, and I'd sat with a Zen master because I'd sat in Sai Kung, and for the last 7 years of my Sai Kung life, I was very, very unhappy. I was very lonely, and yet it was hugely cathartic as well. Hugely cathartic for me, because I retrained in cognitive behavior. That's when I started retraining in therapy. So it became very clear to me that all of this work, all of this therapy, all of life had not helped me shift my bullshit. And by that, I mean something very heavy, the heaviness, the burden of the story that we carry, of how we define ourselves, what we believe about ourselves and others, and what's happened to us in our life. And as you probably know or don't know, based on your own journey, there have probably been things as well that have worn you down. As you said, you had a big accident. So it's things that weigh us down. It's things that make us miserable. It's things that make us feel not good enough. And we all have a version of not good enough that we feel less than. All of that is the bullshit. So the next question, I guess, is going to be, how do you get beyond the bullshit to the bliss? And this is part of what I discovered when I was in India, the third time round after I'd sat with the Zen master in Pune, is that we can all do it, right? Every single human is wired to live beyond the bullshit. This is what the Buddha discovered 2,400 years ago. So we can all do it. We're all inherently trained to actually go beyond the stories that we tell ourselves. I think the first point of going beyond the bullshit is to recognize that it's bullshit, right? So, for example, what I say to people is the fastest way to know whether you're in the bullshit is, do you feel tense? Do you feel heavy? Do you feel as if you're, carrying the burden of the world on your shoulders? If you are, that's a state of lack. Bottom line, burden, tension, heaviness is lack. And that's the clearest example you could possibly need to say, okay, I need to shift something here. I need to become I need to shift myself through this bullshit. Go, okay, I'm feeling tense. This means I'm buying into some story about me, about something. In this moment, can I, number one, take a breath? Can I step back? Can I go, okay, this doesn't feel good. This is, by definition, some lie I'm telling you. You don't even need to know what the lie is, really. You don't even know what the bullshit is, really. You just need to know, okay, I don't feel good. Therefore, I need to do something I do need to do something about it. So to get beyond it, what I discovered was that if you go through a process of, first you think to yourself, okay, I don't want to think that. I don't want to feel that. It's not bypassing. This is different to bypassing. This is saying, basically, I'm an infinite being. I can choose to feel and think. Nothing's set in stone in my head. There's no, God up there did not go, you will think these things about yourself or about other people. It's not set in stone, right? So if we know that we're infinite, if we are connected through this conscious awareness or nature, whoever's listening, there are different ways of explaining it. But if we know that we're all connected, if we know that nothing's set in stone, if we know that we don't start and we don't end, we're more than just a body, then I don't have to believe anything in my head. I don't have to believe the bullshit that I tell myself about myself and others 24/7. Just saying that is part of it.
Yes. You just lit firecrackers. They're just popping in my head. So thank you for that. Now, what's interesting is I haven't recorded an episode in about a month. So this is like getting back, so this is really nice, really great. This is kind of fantastic. And in my personal life, what's been happening? Okay, so sorry. One, I interrupt all the time. Two, I don't really ask questions. I talk and then the person says, is there a question? I'm like, well, pretend there was and you answer that, which you did perfectly. And just know, because we have to move on to the next photo, but just know that what you just said right there hits home right between the eyes, right in the gut, really hard. I'm going to try not to cry while I talk to you, but yeah, what you just said really hit home. And I think from that point, I think we need to move on to your next image. Is that okay?
Yes, please. Well, cry if you must.
So it's a screenshot of images on this nice sort of bleed of turquoise at the top, going down to dark blue to purple, and it says in really beautiful letters, "You can't complain or defend your limiting feelings about love or life, and claim to be consciously creating a better situation." So, do you want to reread that without messing it up?
What it was is it's a Facebook post, but it encapsulates a very important message that I am constantly telling my clients. You can't complain or defend your limited feelings about love or life or anything else and claim to be consciously creating a better situation, because the two just do not vibe. The energy of consciously creating what you want does not vibe with consciously moaning about what you don't have. They do not work together.
Okay.
So I'm going to keep going. So the important message of this is for anybody who's thinking, I want a better life. I want better situations. I want to create more opportunities. I want, I know I'm an infinite being. I know I can consciously harness the power of the mind, which is, this is it's taking The Secret and all those other books further. If you start from this place of going, okay, nothing's set in stone. Maybe we have a bit of a karmic birth story or past life story chucked in for good measure, but actually 80% of my life I can probably, around my karmic birth story, I can actually do what I want within reason if I harness the power of the mind. But so many people that I talk to are consciously or constantly focusing what they don't have around a subject as opposed to what they want around the subject. So if I said to you, for example, and I specialize in helping people, I'm a love coach and a self-love coach. So it's all about connections with themselves and others. So 90% of people will come on the phone and Zoom and they'll say, oh, but I haven't got a boyfriend, or I haven't got a husband, or I haven't got this and I haven't got that. And they don't realize that they're focusing on the not having what they want, as opposed to, I'm really positive that I can do this. I can create what I want. I can have the life that I want, and I am going to get it. And it's not just words, actually, Ran. If you bring it back, you can feel it. If you tune in to what it feels like when you say, I don't have, it comes back to this contraction feeling. It feels very narrow. It feels very heavy. It just feels like I'm in lack. I don't have it. I don't have it. Whereas if you go to the other, if you flip it, and it's literally, like I say to people, it's like a train. You go into one platform, you pull out and you go in the other side. You take your train into the other platform. Oh, I know I'm going to get what I want. I know that somehow, someday I will have the love that I want. I know it's just around the corner. And I know that, again, there is no such thing, I think, as bad luck. Okay, we make most of our own luck. So I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to focus on it happening, and I'm going to focus on it happening. And I know that one day it will happen, and it will happen. And the energy of that is so much. In fact, the energy of that speaks so much louder than the words. The words don't even really do it justice.
Yeah.
The energy talks louder, and we can all feel it all the time. Are we complaining about what we don't have because that feels very, very narrow? Or are we sitting here feeling relaxed and in the flow of life, knowing I'm an infinite being, I can have what I want, and it feels like the energy is flowing, the heart energy is flowing. It's wide. So that's what that's about.
Now, isn't it funny that we've been trying to talk for a little bit, and the can got kicked for various reasons, and then we finally get to speak, and for the past month, I have been so very much myself personally in this feeling of, speaking of COVID, so it's been 3.5 years that I just haven't been able to get a job. And so the podcast was a labor of love that was started because where do I want to put my energy? It speaks to what's important to me, which is like inspiring others to make every second count. And the past month, I have been very much in the sense of tension, although being, in the world of therapy, and you had mentioned CBT. And so I've had, general anxiety disorder since the financial crisis of 2009. And so it's panic attacks and everything. But have actually been I turned the page in a way. So I've kind of given myself permission to let that go and just not have it anymore. And so, yeah, I still have GAD, but it's no longer this shadow over my life. And here we are meeting, and here you are, the words coming out, and it's not the words, it's the energy. And so when I was based in Sai Kung, because I'm no longer based in Sai Kung, because I moved out, when I would give a lot of training, leadership training and stuff, how I would articulate it is by saying that the energy you put in is the energy you get back.
Yeah.
It's slightly different words, but maybe the same feeling. Okay, so how does this quote manifest as actual, practical, ephemeral, not non-flaky, non-whatever consulting?
How to do it in real life?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thing is to actually start to recognize when you feel the contraction. So I'll give you a really good example. When we started in COVID, in the lockdown, and I remember at that point, because this is an ongoing journey. So I'm going to say the book is not about two people. We found our version of Nirvana, but we're not Eckhart Tolle, and we don't, it's like we're waking up in stages, and or should I say you wake up in a moment, but there are stages of mind, right? Of developing the mind.
Yep.
And I would say 4 years ago when we got there and I started writing. And at that point, I remember I had an epiphany, right? And I was sitting there going, my money's going to run out. My money's going to run out. My money's going to run out. Okay. This comes to this, exactly your point. And I suddenly thought it really was an epiphany that I could feel the energy of what that feels like. My money's going to run out. My money's going to run out, to the point that I really did get to zero. Okay. Just so happens I was in COVID. It didn't matter. I mean, it mattered, right? It still mattered, but it was a big deal for me, a big deal. And I thought to myself, okay, I could feel that this was the energy leaking away. I was literally leaking away my money being an energy, actually money to me is life force energy, right? So I was literally leaking this life force energy by worrying and complaining and talking about something to the point that it happened. And I had to get to that point to go, okay, this is what this feels like, to then go, I got to flip this into making what I want to happen. So, for example, what I say is, now, rather than, okay, if you think about, you say, not having money, not having a job, not having work, and that feeling, and it feels very much small, and it feels like it's going down. If you then pull your shoulders back and you imagine the heart energy is going up and out, and you then start to say, but it's the words, right? It's the energy, not the words. So it can be any word, but something along the lines of, I love my money. How am I going to make the money I have grow? How am I going to make the resources I have work for me? How am I going to make, even if I've only got 10 Hong Kong dollars, 100 whatever how can I make that make me more money? It could be any words like that. You will feel the difference in the body. One feels it's directly connected to the heart and it feels very open. And what I used to make myself do it, and it became a practice in COVID because I had nowhere to go, and I was literally, not COVID, but the beginning of COVID, in the lockdown, and I was sitting there and I was sitting alone. I made myself get my journaling books, right? The hardest thing to do when I had it, I was definitely in the middle of GAD. My mum died of COVID at the beginning of the COVID. I was sitting in India on my own. My partner was in Bali living in, a different version of COVID, in his soft lockdown, scooting around on a bike and having more fun than me. And I had to do something. And the hardest part to do it, when all I wanted to do was like literally lie in my bed in fetus position, was to make myself do something to shift my state. Right? I had to. So I would get the notebook and I would, given and you sound like you know about therapy, but given what I know about therapy, I would use it to hypnotize myself. So I would come up with, I wouldn't just journal on, oh, I'm feeling so bad. Oh, what am I going to do? I used it as hypnosis training. So if you like, I would get a page and I would write things like, 1 month after I reunite with Noah, or 1 month after I hit a five-figure month.
Mm-hmm.
How did I feel? How did I show up differently? What did I do differently? What did I think differently? And it wasn't, again, so much the words, but after writing that for sometimes hours, sometimes 5 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes, my state would shift and I would feel more expansive again.
Mm-hmm.
And once you feel more expansive again, I would immediately write down now, what are 3 things you can do right now to make money? So I think in answer to that question, the hardest part is when you're feeling the most contracted, and you know what I mean by that: heavy, tense, worried,
Mm-hmm.
nervous, anxious. The hardest part in the middle of that is to go, nope, I am not, because I'm an infinite being and I know my body's having this reaction, and I'm not going to keep fueling the bullshit. So I'm going to make myself sit down and I'm going to write, or I'm going to do some dynamic meditation, because passive meditation doesn't work in a lot of cases for things like, depression and GAD. It won't work. It just makes you feel worse. So I'll do a dynamic meditation. So I will scream into a pillow until I feel that my tension's going. Or if I'm feeling really anxious, initially, if my nervous system's really tense, I'll go and I'll put water on my face. But I find jumping up and down, I will somatically move the energy out of the body while focusing on what I want to create, as opposed to the story of what's kept me stuck. And then it becomes different.
Sam Spiro,
Here's to that.
what are you doing? Right fucking on. Amazing. You have you cannot imagine how right to the heart of my chest, my brain, whatever it is, what you've just said is going. Yeah, that's great. In my case, it's stuff like doing Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu. For me, that's how I get out of my body, get out of my head and get really, basically completely, my state absolutely changes. Sex, too. Of course, sex is self-love. And I'm not just talking about masturbating, but I mean, sex is also a great way of getting, into your body. Okay. Well, you want to move on to the next photo?
What is the next photo?
Do you want to add something else on this idea
I
of
do.
You can't complain or defend your limiting feelings about love or life and claim to be consciously creating a better situation?
The only thing I was going to add is really important that, or you were saying how to implement it into the real life. Then you'll see that. So the next time, even Ran yourself, the next time you find yourself going down the rabbit hole of hell, as I call it, don't voice it. Just sit and imagine if the rabbit hole of hell is inside of you, and it doesn't make the fears not real. Or should I say, it doesn't mean you don't have the fear. It's not. But if you imagine that you are sitting on a chair in the middle of that fear, and you're just allowing it to literally move through you, even if you'll actually vomit into a bin, just let it move, because energy, you can't get rid of energy and you can't stuff it down, and what goes down has to come up. So the best thing you can possibly do with that is either jump up and down and move it, but literally, and this is for anybody, if you're sitting there in a situation where you feel stuck, imagine what you want to create. So say I want, a job that pays me X thousand million, whatever, but make it real and practical. Or, I want X clients, but jump up and down when the fear hits, repeating to yourself, I know, because knowing is way more powerful than I am. Or I love earning money. I love working. I love doing what I love being of service to the world, etc. And then see how often you have to do that before something comes into your reality, something new.
Thank you.
You are.
Okay. Is that a photo of Noah?
Yes.
He's hugging. Is that you as well? Is that the both of you two? Is it the both?
Yes.
Because I can't tell. Photographs are strange, so the angle is a little strange. But that's a photo of you as well. A really beautiful selfie. Noah is taking the image. He's kind of holding it at arm's length. You're seated on his lap. It's an image of radiant joy. Half of the image is blasted from, like, it's overexposed. You're wearing a white shirt, so like a lot of the image is just blasted, no detail, just really, really white. Super close embrace. You're making this nice self-portrait. Okay, what is this other than just a beautiful moment between two people?
That was a day after my 50th birthday, and we were in Bali. And that day I was going off to India to do this yoga teacher training. So I was actually really sad. I was in and out of sadness because I didn't want to go off for 4 weeks. And also, who knew? I had no idea I was going to be, off on a trek for 6 months. So this picture is basically, to me, telling me all along what got me through from this moment of my 50th birthday and going off to fulfill this dream of becoming a yoga teacher, to come back, to carry on doing our retreats around Asia, to just enjoying this life. It's telling me that what got me around, if you like, in a full circle to come back in a way to being back in that position was the belief that I had that we would be reunited. And so many people, in my past, I know I used to be very, so I just remember an example when I was in my 20s and I had this boyfriend and he went off for summer. I think I was 24 and we just finished our degree and I cried the whole 5 weeks that he was away. And I would cry to people, oh, it's over, blah, blah, he won't come back to me, And so I was crying about something that hadn't even happened. And this wasn't intuition, because intuition is usually calm, right? Intuition is neutral. This was fear. And again, it was me buying into this whole fear so much, so strong that for sure I created that reality. For sure. I mean, I for sure. And I have other examples of where, I learned the hard way. When you cry about something that hasn't happened yet, often you cry about it for real. And so this picture's just, I love it. It's beautiful. And 6 months later, we were reunited, and all the way through of being separated, there were practices that I used on myself to keep myself, even when I didn't do it perfectly. I wobbled. I had moments of when I was crying, but I also, like I said before, was the more you make yourself shift your state, the easier it becomes to do it when you are wobbling and feeling in the middle of that anxiety or separation anxiety or just COVID or lockdown or how horrific life can be sometimes. The more that you do it, the easier it becomes to do it, even when the mind attacks you,
Right.
And I truly believe to this day that it could have gone so many ways, but I stand by the belief, and I'm just opening it to look at the picture. I stand by the belief and knowing that I kept myself more than 51% of the time, because people will say, oh, you just have to do this for 17 seconds. No, I think you have to stay open for at least 51%. Otherwise, 50-50 is status quo, and 49% would be the opposite, back into the lack. So, keeping myself open to the knowing and using all the kind of tantric magic that I've compiled for myself over the years to create the situation that I wanted, or the outcome.
Sure.
And that's not to say it's not perfect. I didn't do it perfectly. I wobbled often. I cried quite a lot. And yet I knew I cried while knowing I'm going to get what I want. I shouted while knowing I'm going to get what I want. Why? Because I'll tell you what, and I'm coming back to it, because this feels to me like the message of today. Why? Because I'm an infinite being and nobody puts it in my head and nothing's set in stone. And there's no, to me, there's no God in a chair going, this is what will happen. I don't think there's soulmates either. I think there's more than one, but the one that you end up with
Sure.
is the one you choose to be the one.
Yes. Yes.
So that's why that picture is there. And I love it.
It's a beautiful, fantastic moment. And it's just, it's funny how, how we can't look into the future to know what's coming around the corner. We can only make sense of it looking backwards, right? So in this case, for example, when you made that photo, little did you know what was going to happen.
Exactly.
And in a way, like, it's sort of like recording this episode. Little do I know, after recording this episode, my whole fate will change. Like, I don't know what's around the corner. Okay, so how is it manifesting for you now in terms of your life? So your guys are living together. You're still serving clients. Like, what does life for Sam Spiro look like now?
Okay,
Like,
so
if you could go back to that photo.
well, these are I call it the pieces of the puzzle scenario. The pieces of the puzzle that had to fall to get me to where I am now. So based on that, I went to India and I got locked down in Rishikesh. And this is, I'll go into some of the story. I got locked down in Rishikesh. I remember sitting on a sofa and saying, okay, what am I going to do now? Because part of me, I was quite blasé in the beginning and I missed the window. I had a 24-hour window to leave. And there's part of me that said, no, don't leave. You cannot leave.
Okay.
Without finishing that training, and you cannot leave. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll be here till May, because I'd been in Hong Kong during bird flu. And I thought, oh, whatever, we'll just wear a mask. It'll be fine. Not knowing. Yep. And of course, it wasn't like that at all. But somehow a contact, and I got to Delhi. And in Delhi, I met some of the A-listed Delhi people, and I ended up sitting with them every day and coaching them on how to wake up, how to let go of the bullshit, how to live more in the bliss. And I did that for 3 months before finally both Noah and I met again. We were able to get out, and we got to London. But because of that, the pieces of the puzzle were, I'm going to go to India and I'm going to meet these amazing women and they're going to become my clients, and that's going to become my client base. Now, none of that would have happened.
Right.
Had Noah and I, for example, before I left, and he was like, are you sure you should go? And I was like, oh yeah, no worries. This might have been on the 23rd of February or something, before it had really hit. Yeah. I'm going. Yeah. And if I hadn't have gone, I ended up, and last year I was on a show, but I'm not going to go into that too much details about that either, but which was attached to one of these clients in India. And my whole client base, really, and I work with a lot of lovely, beautiful people in India, where we resonate so much, because so much of the teaching, so much of my own awakening, so much of my own spiritual understanding is based on the Vedic principles. So there's a real resonance I have especially with them. With anybody who's open to spiritual awakening and awareness, but they get it a lot, Yeah. And none of that would have happened had I have stayed sitting on his lap in the elephant in Bali and just thought, I won't go. Of course, might have ended up somewhere else, would have ended up somewhere else with different pieces of the puzzle. But those were my pieces of the puzzle, and I could have had no idea that was coming.
Yeah. So just for the listener, once again, the title of your book, so they can go and be inspired to get your book.
Beyond Bullshit to Bliss, a transformative guide to finding self-love, abundance, and enlightenment. And it is on Amazon. So the next photo, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, no, for sure. Look, it's another, it's like a screenshot, and it's samspiro.com, no less.
Yeah.
I guess, so there's your handle, which is Sam Zen, the love activator. And then the quote is, when you start to realize that no one can give you true love, and no one can take it from you either, you start to get emotionally free. True love is who you are. It's not a prize for being picked. Okay. I love that the word love and that the idea of love and all of that is so present in your world. So don't let me put words in your mouth or whatever, but how wide is the last image that we're using this quote?
Because you're right, I love love. All of these things that I've discovered through my own journey, through relationships and loneliness and heartbreak and family tragedy and the whole shebang. The word I love the most is love. And I think love is a superpower. And I would test it out on myself because I was doing all of these, manifestation techniques for the last 30 years, and some would work and some wouldn't. And then I started to play around with the word love. And just by saying it, with people, just say the word love. It's without doubt one of the highest frequency words you can possibly say. But you say it through the body, I love. And as I went through the awakening process, and I sat with different teachers in India, and that in itself is a story. And, we went through certain questionings and self-inquiry prompts, I should say. And when you go into the who am I, actually what I should have had on that picture is who am I? Because it all starts with asking that question, who am I? And you ask it to yourself, who am I? And if you snap and you ask, who am I? And you snap, eventually you will feel a slight opening in the chest. Who am I? That opening in the chest, I think you just felt it, right? I just felt that you felt something.
Okay.
So in that tiny space is the portal. That is enlightenment. Now, if you put your awareness in it and you start swimming around, you ask yourself, did anyone give me this love? You can feel there's no one who gave it to you. You can also feel it was there before you were born. Was it there before? Did someone give it to me? No. Was it there before I was born? Yes. I'm doing this now. This is not through memory. Can it be taken away from me? No. And can anyone give it to me? No. So if no one can take it from me and no one can give it to me, then I don't actually need anyone else to feel this. But this is the crazy thing. We all think we need other people to give us love. And we think that the love we feel is dependent on them. And the love that they give us is dependent on them as well. But actually, love is ours. So the love I have for my partner is my love. Sure, he may trigger my love. But the love is mine. No one can give it to me. No one can take it from me. So whether he stays or goes, I can still feel that love. I can still choose to project that love towards him or not, no matter what him or anybody else does. So when I started to really realize that love is me, love is mine, and go through this really quick process, who am I? Who am I? It's a question that makes me, if you're looking into a mirror, imagine you're looking into a mirror, but you swivel the mirror and you make it look back into you. If you see what I mean. So rather than me looking at you right now, imagine that there's a mirror here and it's bouncing back and you're bouncing back inside. Then suddenly you're floating in this beautiful, vast space. And, in the moments where we really want love, if you go in there and sit, as I said, in that chair in the middle of the chaos and just be with the chaos and pull down, like imagine you're pulling down a screen in your mind. So it's like black. To me, it's black and starry. So you're not going into the story of who left you or who didn't want you or who didn't pick you or who robbed you or who betrayed you, because that's where the bullshit is. So you're saying no to the bullshit, but you're going to sit with the raw emotion. So there's no spiritual bypassing here. It's complete spiritual acceptance, if you like, of the raw emotion you may be experiencing, while recognizing that you are way vaster. The true you is way vaster than this emotion that's going through you. However, it's energy and you have to give it presence if you want to evolve. Right? So this thing about the true love for me is that, I guess, one of the most important moments of my whole evolution, if you like, has been the recognition that no one can give it to me and no one can take it from me. Therefore, I don't need anybody else to feel sure, people are great, relationships are great. You could say, so why did you go and, if it was so good, why did you go get married? Why are you in a relationship? Well, because I can, because it's fun, because our partners are our greatest teachers, because, I'm determined to be free emotionally
Yeah.
or mentally of the bullshit.
Okay. Well, like for example, why did you when I ask when I hear questions like that, like why did you choose to do this or that? It's like, well, why chocolate? Why vanilla? Just because. Like it just is.
Yeah.
And ultimately, how do we get to that understanding? Somebody like Michael Sapolsky would say, well, there is no free will to understand, so it's just there, and you can always try to go backwards to find out, well, what was before that or what caused that. Okay, so for the listener who's listening, I mean, we've gone into some pretty abstract, vague, theoretical, the sort of the uncharitable listener might say hippy dippy territory. But so, for example, one of the values that you clearly have is around love, and you're absolutely right that true love is who you are. Like you can choose to become a loving being, and it just keeps giving and keeps flowing and it never ends. My association to that is fun, as much as it is love, actually. Okay, so let's bring it back down to solid ground, right? So in your practice, helping people, usually people, when they turn to you, it's because there's a problem. It's because there's a crisis. It's because they're in pain. There's trauma. So how do you bring people back down to earth from their trauma and their pain? I've really appreciated what you said in terms of, I mean, it's almost like CBT, in terms of like visualization of how to get back into yourself to kind of get the chaos to kind of turn down the volume on that. Okay, so for somebody who doesn't have love in their life and they're looking for it, like it's like some secretive mouse in a house that you just like, I'm gonna find that love one of these days, but it's actually inside you the whole time. So how does that come alive in your practice?
Okay, so what I do is, and I'd say it's not so much for people who just have trauma, it's for people who have trauma and who have tried everything else and it doesn't work, because that's what happened to me. I tried therapy, I've tried everything, and it only really worked. I only shifted when I started to self-inquire in the right way, and as in with the CBT, started to implement those steps. Okay, so you've got the inner change with the self-inquiry, with the steps of change in CBT. So making a list from 1 to 10, with 1 being the easiest thing that you could possibly do and 10 being impossible, but you're going to do it anyway. So doing this list and making myself take action, because I've done plenty of hypnotherapy where, or therapy where we just spoke and blah, but no one ever made me take it. No one ever said to me, so what action are you going to take? And without action,
Right.
nothing changes. Truly, nothing changes. And I'm sure, this will spark a debate regardless. Anyway, this has been my experience. And then going into that self-inquiry. So learning, but not just learning. This is not learning. This is experiencing in the now. This is going into asking that question, who am I? Because I asked it 2 years before I then re-asked it. And learning that I am, or learning on a visceral level, learning inherently, so learning is the wrong word, recognizing inherently that there is way more to me than this body. Okay, so this is, it's a solo practice, if you like. So I would take people into straight away, the who am I? Who am I? And as soon as I feel that they felt that opening in the chest, you then go into, as we were saying, but you find that awareness expands really fast. And when your awareness expands really fast and you're out here as opposed to closed in, I mean, there's many different ways you can stretch your awareness, you stretch your eyes, all sorts of things, that you're seeing yourself there on the bed or on the chair, and you'll see yourself experiencing certain things, but you recognize that that is not you. It's not the true you. It's a version of you who's going through the drama. It's a version of you who's suffering. And then I get them to recognize, can you see that the part of you that's suffering is not the you who's observing you suffering? There, and it happened there, just there. Then it becomes a distance, and suddenly the power of the drama, of the bullshit, lessens. And the more that you are able to recognize that I can be sitting there, even I can be sitting here crying and shouting and screaming, or not quite that anymore, but having a moment and having a wobble and thinking, what's going to happen in my life, and where am I going, what am I doing, and why have they done this, blah, 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 you know, bullshit. And suddenly, okay, stretch my awareness. I'm up there, I'm on the ceiling, I'm on the walls, I'm on the floor, I'm everywhere. Okay, can I recognize, can I see that the part of me that's suffering is not the part of me that recognizes I'm suffering? And then there's a distance. And within that distance, suddenly there's peace. And on a practical level, okay, let's say on a practical level, say, for example, I have what I call human moment and I feel insecure about something, rather than asking my partner to validate me or verify or approve, I just sit there in the discomfort of the need of wanting something, and it shifts.
Okay.
And the more you do that, the more you build. So self-confidence is not confidence in your mind, it's confidence in the self. It's confidence in the truth of who you really are. So how would I do it? So for every situation in life, so if it's the lack of money or job, so I use different principles, you know, I'll kind of go into, because I know I'm an inherent being, I know that I can, and it is, I mean, you can say it's woo-woo, but it's woo-woo until you prove it to yourself, and then it's suddenly not woo-woo. And the only way you can prove it to yourself is to do it. And the only way you can do it is to kind of say, I'm going to take the risk of trying something new to see whether I can create what I want. And I find that a lot of people, they have a fear that if they believe they can have it and then they don't get it, that's even worse than not even believing they can have it.
Right.
So you got to challenge that. And you got to say, you know, what I call zero headspace. There's zero headspace for failure, as in, so say, for example, you know, when you when you do your driving test and you're like, I'm going to pass that driving test. You don't sit there and study and do your highway code and get in the car and go around the roundabouts thinking, I'm going to fail. You're like, no, I'm going to pass. Sure, you may have a wobble, but you're going to pass. I'm going to pass. So anytime, you know, am I going to get a job? Am I going to do this? Am I going to get love? Right. Wobble comes up. Okay. Let it vent for a minute. And then, no, everything's working out for me. I cannot tell you the amount of times I say to myself on loop, everything's working out for me. It always has and always will. I write it. I say it to the point that then if I wobble, it goes into within 2 days or 3 days, I can give myself a new story. And if I write it a few times a day and I repeat it and I read it, suddenly within 3 days, that's the new story, which makes you think,
Right.
Was the old story real? Who put the old story there? If this new story feels as real as the old story, then who put it there? But the answer to the question is, in order to know whether it's woo-woo or whether to know, you got to try it. And it doesn't really matter what label you put on it until you try it. If it works for you, it works for you. Then suddenly it's practical. Does that make sense? I'm sure people might not agree, but hey.
Screw them.
I've seen it work. I've seen it. I know it works.
Yeah. Okay. So, samspiro.com is where people can find you online. Your book is available.
It's on the bestseller list now.
Boom. Congratulations.
Yay.
It's wicked. Okay. Well, look, like these hours go by so quickly. It's already been an hour, right?
Amazing.
So, yeah, amazing. You're amazing. Okay. Well, any last thoughts you'd like to leave the listener? I'm going to just give you the mic. Like, as far as the book, they can get the book, follow you on the various social media. I don't know if you use different social media, but definitely you have a website, samspiro.com.
Yes. And I'm Samantha Spiro on Facebook. What I've really come to realize is we are not who we think we are. We are way vaster and way more inspired and way more resourceful than we give ourselves benefit for. And I think the most important question that I ask myself and others is, can you afford to spend one more minute living as the version of you who doesn't believe it's possible? Or is life too short to buy into the bullshit when you can actually, nothing's fixed in stone. You can challenge it. So why not do it now? And that's one question. And the second question would be, if on some level through the circumstances of your own life, you've trained, or we all train ourselves to see life a certain way, and that's based on the bullshit, then it should occur to us that we can also train our minds to actually see it differently. So why wouldn't we? Why do we accept the bullshit limitations we impose upon ourselves when we don't have to? We don't have to. And you can literally sit in front of a mirror, ask, who am I? Go inside and just feel the stillness and feel the silence and feel that little space inside you and know that that is enlightenment. And the only task is to recognize that more and more and more and experience that more and more and more. And it really does come from that one question. And that in itself will create the change in life. Because, is life basically a business that we have to manage, or is it living the great mystery? Which one is it? Which one do you want it to be? And that's it.
That's beautiful. Sam, thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely perfect.
Oh, thank you, Ran.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
Oh, baby, I like